Welcome. I am the Kaiju no Kami. Back in 1954, Toho had released a movie about a monster that symbolized the atomic bombs that had been dropped on Japan during World War II called Godzilla. The movie showed pure terror and destruction in its wake, just as the bombings in Japan had done to its residents. It was a phenomenal hit, so what did Toho do? Make a quick sequel to cash in on its success, and it shows. That brings us to tonight's review, Godzilla Raids Again. As the movie begins, we are introduced to our main characters, all who work for a fishing company called Kaiju. Our leads are Soichi Tsukioka, Koji Kobayashi, and Hidemi Yamanji, all played by Hiroshi Koizumi, Minoru Chiaki, and Setsuko Wakayama. Tsukioka and Kobayashi are pilots who search for schools of fish for their company's fishermen to catch. While out searching, Kobayashi's plane goes down and Tsukioka has to rescue him on an island he landed on. The duo finds themselves too close to a fight that suddenly emerges between what appears to be Godzilla and another dinosaur-looking monster. The two titans battle each other until they both fall into the cold ocean below. Kobayashi and Tsukioka report the event and identify the monster. It is a dinosaur known as an Ankylosaurus, also known as an Anguirus. Yamane is in the meeting and tells everyone that one of the monsters is indeed Godzilla, so there must have been a second one in existence. He says there is no way to stop the beast without the oxygen destroyer. He then proceeds to show them a movie from the first Godzilla's rampage. Now, I know Japan went through several tragedies during that decade, but you'd think that a giant monster that destroyed one of the most populated cities would be quite rememberable. I don't think they would forget to the point that they need to be shown a movie to remember. What is interesting is that Yamane says Godzilla is angered by light because it reminds him of the H-bomb. I want to say this idea was just pulled randomly out of his ass, but thinking back to the first movie, Godzilla did seem enraged by the light, such as when the cameras were going off as he destroyed Tokyo Tower. The military searches for Godzilla while Tsukioka and Hidemi are out dancing. An announcement informs everyone that Godzilla has turned from his original destination and is close by. Osaka is placed under a strict blackout. The military surrounds the bay. Now I will say the miniatures used here for both the buildings and the vehicles are pretty nice, and I also love the way the scenery looks when it's in total darkness. Based on Yamane's advice from earlier in the movie, the military uses flares and hope to keep Godzilla distracted away from Osaka. All seems well until a group of convicts escape in the stupidest way possible. Common sense. It's a lost art. And a chase ensues. Three of the criminals hijack a gasoline truck, and after another comedic car chase, they crash into a gasoline tanker at the Kaiju factory, causing an explosion that lures Godzilla to the dock. The army attacks Godzilla and... what is up with that face? One of the worst aspects of this movie is in the design of Godzilla. For some reason, Toho decided not to use the same costume as the first movie, and the rush production of this suit shows. From the side it looks fine, but then when you have a close-up shot like this, or even a full frontal view, it is truly an ugly suit. Anguirus emerges onto the dock and a new fight between the two monsters begin. As you can see here, even the head on Anguirus is not the greatest, and I'm not exactly sure what is going on with his neck there, but it just looks silly. Now, one thing I will say that I do like about this fight is how it is sped up. Speeding it up makes it really look like there are two ferocious animals ripping apart at each other. That to me is one of the better aspects of this movie. In the meantime, the three remaining criminals are still on the loose and they run into the subway to avoid the colossal battle ahead. Due to their battle, a flood runs through the subway and catches the criminals. No! Not that flood. Osaka Castle is destroyed in the battle. Maybe I should start a counter on how many times Osaka Castle gets destroyed. I think it's going to be a lot. Godzilla kills Anguirus. Or is he? The one thing about a monster dying in these movies is that you're never really sure if they actually died or not. It's kind of like us calling in sick. A monster calls in dead for a few movies, and then they're back a few sequels later. I like to call this superhero-itis. Godzilla proceeds to burn Anguirus' body with his breath, and I'm not a fan of this shot, as Godzilla looks really bad in it. We see Osaka burning afterwards, and the next morning we are shown the destruction of it in a similar fashion to the previous movie. In fact, everything here just looks like they're trying to just redo the previous movie without the nuclear war message. It just doesn't really work for me. Kobayashi is sent to the Hokkaido branch, and some time passes in. Yeah, that looks so real. I don't know what it is about this scene. It just, the way it's done in his face just makes me laugh. Tsukioka and Hidemi soon travel to Hokkaido to join Kobayashi, and while they are at a party with both fellow employees and former college friends, one of their ships is destroyed, presumably by Godzilla. A search party is sent out and Tsukioka finds Godzilla by Kamiko Island. Kobayashi's plane is shot down by Godzilla's atomic breath and it crashes into a mountain, causing an avalanche. The military plans to bombard Godzilla with bombs and they have no effect on him. After more bombs are dropped around Godzilla to trap him in the ice, the military flees to come up with a new plan. Hidemi's tears feel forced, and you would think those in the room around her would start crying or something too. Instead, they are just sitting there at their desks as if nothing happened. Unfortunately, the death of Kobayashi just doesn't feel all that impactful to the viewer or his friends. He was a likable guy and all, it's just more that his death feels more like a, well, that sucks, than actually being tragic. A plan is put forth to melt the ice around Godzilla, and they start to put barrels around the island while Godzilla digs himself out.
The most dazzling ice extravaganza of the year, Reptar on Ice, comes to the County Coliseum, March 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Was Godzilla really just chilling there the entire time? Why would he now just start to dig himself out? The barrels are ignited while the planes come in to drop more bombs in order to cause another avalanche. Wouldn't that just smother the flames? Like in the previous movie, you can see the wires here in these shots, which again might just be noticeable because of the digital cleanup on these movies. Nevertheless, they are there.
Michael Bay presents Explosions! Explosions from Michael Bay! Michael Bay Explosion!
After a long and drawn out sequence of watching the plane shoot at the mountain and be shut down by Godzilla, Godzilla is finally buried by the ice and the movie ends. There you have it. That is Godzilla Raids Again. Overall, the movie is a rush job and it shows in every scene. You do feel the friendship between Kobayashi and Tsukioka, and you do feel that they are both good-hearted people, but the movie is lacking that oomph needed to get really emotional over Kobayashi's death. The acting is okay and the effects are good, but everything just screams rush job with this. The music is actually done by a different composer, Masaru Sato, who replaced Akira Ifukube, and his soundtrack works, but it's not exactly the greatest. Compared to the previous movie, it is really lacking the impact of a culture devastated by nuclear weapons. Here it just feels like a giant monster movie, which is unfortunate because this is what you would have expected from the first one. On the positive side, Anguirus does make a really good adversary, but it is a shame that he is killed off pretty much halfway through the movie. As I said before, I do like the scenery and the miniatures, especially when Osaka is blacked out, but the Godzilla costume is just really horrendous looking. Like I said, it's fine from the side, but you get close-up shots or even frontal views, the head, it is just awful. The proportions look off, and even something just feels unrealistic about it. And yes, I understand the irony of saying a rubber suit looks unrealistic. My biggest issue, though, is a lot of the scenes just feel like they've been dragged out just to increase the running time because they didn't have enough plot. And then, of course, we have that explosion scene with all the planes coming down to blow up all the ice around Godzilla. That was just way too long. Well, that is my review for Godzilla Raids Again, and stay tuned next episode for King Kong vs. Godzilla. Bye.